When the rules of the finals came out, Lu Muyen was sitting in the Stream Reflection restaurant with Luo Li and the others for food. Si Nan drank the spiritual wine that the Stream Reflection restaurant brewed and said with admiration, "The Stream Reflection restaurant is indeed worthy to be famous for its wine. This limited spiritual wine indeed tastes good." "This sort of spiritual wine is good?" Luo Li sneered in disapproval. Si Nan's mouth was very picky, but this spiritual wine was already tasted really good for him. "You say you don't like this spiritual wine, so why don't you take out a jug that's better?" "Lu Muyen, let's take out a jug of spiritual wine to drink." Luo Li blinked his eyes and said with a smile. Both Si Nan and Helian Lai turned to look at Lu Muyen. If Luo Li could say such a thing, then she must have better spiritual wine. Lu Muyen looked at Luo Li in amusement. "If you want spiritual wine, just say it." With a thought, she took out 3 jugs of blood sack wine and placed it on the table. Si Nan immediately took a new wine glass and poured himself a cup. The red wine exuded a mellow aroma, and he took a sip eagerly. "Good wine." He slapped the table, then looked at Lu Muyen and said excitedly, "Little beauty, you actually secretly possess blood sack wine and you didn't think to take it out sooner to share a bit." Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow, then stretched out her hand. "You want to share, sure. Give money." The corner of Si Nan's lips twitched. "You really are a money grubber woman." "Lu Muyen, where did you get this wine?" "It's the best spiritual wine I've ever tasted." Helian Lai smacked his lips and asked with unsatisfaction. "I brewed it." Lu Muyen said with a cheeky smile, "These 3 jugs are gifted to you to drink. If you want more in the future, then buy them with spiritual stones, 300 spiritual stones for 1 jug. Are you robbing people?" Si Nan rolled his eyes. The Stream Reflection restaurant's spiritual wine, which could also improve cultivation base, was only sold for 100 to 200 spiritual stones a jug. Jug. This woman was the owner of specializing in robbing. Helian Lai said speechlessly, "Is robbing people becoming your hobby now?" "Humph, if someone else wanted it, I'd be selling it for 500 spiritual stones for a jug." Lu Muyen glanced at the two of them lightly. "The Stream Reflection restaurant's spiritual wine can improve one's cultivation base, but it's not as good as my blood sack wine. You get what each of your cent pays for, take it or leave it." Si Nan and Helian Lai drank another cup at the same time again and found that there was indeed a heat flow in their dantian. "Can our wine purify elemental energy?" Helian Lai couldn't help but exclaim after running the heat in his dantian for a macrocosmic orbit. Lu Muyen glanced at him. "No kidding. You guys sure are feigning innocence and disinterest after gaining benefits. If I go out to sell it, with 500 spiritual stones for 1 jug, I'd not have a shortage of buyers." Helian Lai smiled bitterly and said, "It were we who had bad eyes." She was right. If this kind of spiritual wine was taken out, let alone 500 spiritual stones, even if it were 1,000 spiritual stones, there would probably be people who would buy it. Our focus seems to be wrong. Si Nan's pretty face revealed a bit of gravity. "Lu Muyen, you, who can brew this kind of spiritual wine, should be a high-level spiritual wine master, right? Grade 3, I think." Lu Muyen thought about it and said a conservative number. "You're just not human." Si Nan took a deep breath, his androgynous face revealing a sense of powerlessness. How could Lu Muyen be so abnormally monstrous? Just what else could she not do? Lu Muyen glared at him. "You're not human. Can you still speak properly?" Cough, cough. "What I mean is, you're not a normal person." Si Nan coughed lightly to hide his embarrassment. He definitely couldn't offend this vengeful little ancestor, otherwise it'd be bad if she didn't go back with him to treat his concubine mother. Lu Muyen was too lazy to pay attention to him. Feeling the fluctuation of the identity jade tablet, she took it out for a look. Helian Lai and the others couldn't help but compare the difference between them and Lu Muyen inwardly. Why was it that the more they interacted with this woman, the more they felt attacked? But he still couldn't help but want to get closer to her. Perhaps this was the so-called personality charm. The 3 jugs of spiritual wine looked like a lot, but there were so many people present that with 2 or 3 cups a person, it was gone. Luo Li glared at Si Nan, who was about to pour the 4th cup. "If you want to drink, go buy it from Lu Muyen yourself." Then, he picked up the last jug of wine and quickly filled the cups of those who only had 2 glasses. Si Nan's expression darkened. Luo Li just always liked to oppose him. The rules for the finals are out. Lu Muyen took her mind away from the identity jade tablet. The others also took out their identity jade tablets and scanned them. The final requires participants to travel from the central city to the fine bamboo mountain thousands of li away. Before entering the mountain, one must fight a great decisive war with the demon clan in this competition space. The color of the jade tablets of sword masters who successfully pass through the encirclement of the demon clan will be decided by how many demonic beasts are killed. Luo Li furrowed his brows and said, "In the great decisive war with the demon clan, life and death is our own responsibility, and the death rate may be as high as 60% or more. Sword masters who are unwilling to take the risk can apply for withdrawal. Isn't this joking with our lives? Otherwise, what do you think?" Si Nan raised an eyebrow. "The top 100 of the finals aren't that easy to enter. Sword masters who successfully pass the great decisive war need to rush to the top of the mountain quickly, and there'll be countless obstacles in between. The first 100 to reach the top of the mountain will be the top 100 in this competition and are eligible to join the 6 major sects. There's a hall on the top of the mountain with 10 gates in total. The 10 people who reach the top of the mountain first will enter. They will then randomly meet to clear the final battle, and the one who can pass the last gate will take first place in this continental tournament for hegemony, and so on. The second place will be the one who exits the second door. The rules of this competition sure are different from the previous competitions. Helian Lai said with an ugly expression. Luo Yi put away the jade tablet in his hand and said, every 100 years, the finals of the continental tournament for hegemony will have their rules changed because there will be a great decisive war every century between the humans and the demon clan. Ours happens to be the 100th year. Why do we have to have a great decisive war with the demon clan? Helian Lai asked. It said that the numbers of the demon clan cannot exceed the number stipulated by the human almighties, otherwise if there are too many high-level demonic beasts, then this space will definitely become chaotic, and it will inevitably affect the future continental tournament for hegemonies. Luo Yi didn't conceal it either and revealed the secrets he knew. So that's how it is. But after the great decisive war, the 500 people that entered the finals will probably be cut by half. Si Nan sneered. The organizers didn't take their lives seriously at all. Although they could understand the principle of natural selection and survival of the fittest, but they were still a little uncomfortable. The organizers will assist, and the number of people shouldn't be cut by half. But at least 100 people will inevitably die. Luo Ye's voice was a little cold. Lu Mu Yen pressed her lips together in thought. She suddenly remembered the Thunder Monarch she met at Sunset Cloud Mountain Range. That demon cultivator and her agreed to meet during the continental tournament for hegemony. Could it have something to do with the great decisive war between the humans and the demon clan? She just felt that there was some secret to this space. Maybe it could be solved when she met Thunder Monarch. At the same time, there was an independent hall in a place where thunder and lightning intertwined, and where thunderclouds spread all over the sky. At the top of the hall sat a stern-looking man wearing a crown in cyan clothes. He shook the wine glass, looked up outside the hall, and muttered to himself, finally going to come? Those present all read the rules of the finals, and although they knew that their lives might be in danger, but no one gave up. Lu Mu Yen, let's continue the alliance. Luo Li suggested with a smile. He, Si Nan, and Helian Lai had already negotiated to continue to form an alliance, and now he also hoped that Lu Mu Yen would participate. Lu Mu Yen didn't answer immediately, but turned to look at Yi Qing Han and the others to ask, what do you all think? Her actions made Luo Li and Si Nan's eyes deepen. Lu Mu Yen was indeed different towards the man named Yi Qing Han. Yi Qing Han's eyes revealed tenderness, you decide. Luo Li and Si Nan glanced at each other, and both saw the fearful look in each other's eyes, a great love rival. Lu Mu Bai and the others wouldn't raise any objections. Yener, you can make the decision. Then let's form an alliance. Lu Mu Yen said after thinking a bit. This time, what they would face in the early stage was to fight against demonic beasts. Generally speaking, there weren't any clash of interests involved, and the advantages of an alliance were greater than the disadvantages. Then it's settled. Luo Li smiled happily, let's rest tonight and leave tomorrow. Should we rush to the city where we'll fight the demonic beasts in the great decisive war, or should we hide for a while to cultivate? Helian Lai asked. The time for the finals and the great decisive war against the demonic beasts would begin 3 months later, and the organizers still gave them time to improve their cultivation base. Little beauty, what do you think? Si Nan looked at Lu Mu Yen frivolously and asked with a smile. Lu Mu Yen pondered for a bit and replied, let's go find a place near the city for the decisive battle to cultivate first, and we can also find out some intel along the way. She just constantly felt an indescribable feeling, as if something bad would happen to her. Sure. Early the next morning, the group gathered at the gate of the central city and met Ji Xian, Yan Jun, and the others. You've allied? Yan Jun asked with a wicked smile on his face as he walked towards the group. So what if we did? Didn't you also form an alliance with Mo Ling? Luo Li looked at Yan Jun defensively. Yan Jun's beautiful peach blossom-shaped eyes blinked at Lu Mu Yen. Young Miss Lu, you don't mind if we join your alliance too, right? Yan Jun, what's your purpose? Si Nan furrowed his brows and looked at Hai, asking. What did this damned devil want to do? He didn't believe that Yan Jun's purpose was simply to form an alliance. He was obviously aiming for Lu Mu Yen. What purpose can I have? The great decisive battle with the demonic beasts is naturally best faced with more people and strength. Our alliance means that we can minimize casualties. Yan Jun shrugged innocently. Many other elite teams have already formed alliances. Sure, let's form an alliance. Lu Mu Yen said with an unconcerned, light smile. Yan Jun and Mo Ling may have some purpose, but it wouldn't affect the alliance. She had no idea what the great decisive war would bring, but the inexplicable heart palpitations of fear rose again. Since we're all allied, why don't you add us in the group? Ji Xian came up from behind with a gentle smile on his handsome face. Lu Mu Yen glanced at him and without hesitation, up to you. Young Miss Lu is a refreshing person. Ji Xian laughed aloud, and one could hear that he was very happy at this time. Luo Li and Si Nan weren't in such a good mood, however. Their expressions sank. There came 2 more love rivals now. Why did these thick-skinned people always like to approach Lu Mu Yen? While scolding others, these 2 obviously forgot that they also took the initiative to get close to Lu Mu Yen many times. Yi Qing Han sighed inwardly. His feelings for Lu Mu Yen were already too deep. Even if it bore no fruit between him and her, no matter who she chose in the end, he would still silently protect her. Of course, he would never give up what he should strive for. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he would work hard. Qi Yixian no longer had any hope for himself. Lu Muyan's world was getting farther and farther away from him. The distance between them was as if it crossed the seas, unreachable. The group of people was very large, and they arrived at the human refuge city where the decisive war was to be fought. On the way, they also met a lot of elite team alliances, and their numbers were no less than them, but there weren't any conflicts between them. Well, cultivate separately, then well gather in the city during the great decisive war with the demonic beasts. Lu Muyan's bad feeling grew stronger and stronger. She didn't want to be with the others, afraid that she would bring harm to them. Luoli looked at her in surprise and asked, "You want to go out alone?" I'm going to go find a spiritual herb." Lu Muyan kindly made an excuse. "Yenner, why don't we go with you?" Lu Mubai asked anxiously. Lu Muyan smiled slightly, "Big brother, it's inconvenient if you follow me. It'll be faster riding Bing Ji." "Alright, you have to pay attention to your safety," Lu Mubai said with a sigh. Little sister had grown up, and with her abilities, she should be given freedom to fly. "Lu Muyan, I heard that the Crown Prince of Nanshuan gathered a group of people to snatch the Sumer light boat from you. You have to be careful when you go out alone." Ji Xian reminded her before separating. Lu Muyan nodded with a smile, "Thank you for your reminder, I'll pay attention." Her heart palpitations of fear grew stronger and stronger, but she was certain that this feeling of danger definitely didn't come from the Crown Prince of Nanshuan. After leaving the city, Lu Muyan flew towards a forested mountain in the distance. After searching for a few days, she built a temporary wooden house beside a deep mountain hot spring. "Owner, I want to go out for a walk." Bing Ji's small eyes turned mischievously, and he rubbed against Lu Muyan's shoulder. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes at him. "I've been having a bad feeling recently, you should stay here." "Bad feeling? What's wrong?" Bing Ji was shocked. He rarely saw Lu Muyan reveal such a solemn tone. Lu Muyan shook her head. "Don't know. The danger should be coming soon, so don't relax either. Be more vigilant these days." "Owner, why don't you break my seal?" Bing Ji thought a bit, then said. He didn't want to break the seal for any selfish reasons. If even Lu Muyan was afraid of the danger, then he, who now had his demonic energy sealed, wouldn't be able to help even more. Lu Muyan paused and said, "Alright, let me break your seal first." No matter whether it was the imminent danger that her sixth sense felt or the great decisive war soon, the recovery of Bing Ji's strength also added a guarantee to their overall safety. Lu Muyan recalled the method of breaking the seal that Ming Xiu had told her. Her hands constantly formed seals that entered Bing Ji's body. Then she stretched out her hand over the area with Bing Ji's crystal core and probed into it with spiritual energy little by little, eroding the seal on Bing Ji's crystal core. The seal from Ming Xiu was very profound. If he hadn't left Lu Muyan with the method to break it, Lu Muyan wouldn't be able to break the seal in a short amount of time. An hour later the seal in Bing Ji's body was undone. He raised his head and let out a long cry, then turned into a beam of light and flew out. After the light dissipated, a handsome and elegant man walked out. The corner of Lu Muyan's lips twitched when she saw that elegant and scholarly smile. The image was simply too beautiful, she couldn't bear to look directly at it. After Bing Ji took on his human form, it was just too different from his temperament. Lu Muyan suddenly felt that it would be better for him to just turn into a bird. "Owner, how do I compare to that red-clothed male beauty?" Bing Ji destroyed his elegance in an instant the moment he opened his mouth. Lu Muyan rolled her eyes at him. "Ming Xiu is much more handsome than you." This was the truth. Ming Xiu had a noble temperament, and he occasionally had a devilish charm, though his attitude was very cold. Yet the contradictory combination made one feel that this should just be how he should be. As for his appearance, there was even less of a need to compare. The deep features of Ming Xiu were as if they were carved from a divine axe, his phoenix eyes were serene and deep, as if one would be sucked into them, and he was so handsome it was otherworldly. With his thin lips pressed together, he was like a peerless sword that was restrained in its scabbard, and when drawn, who could compare? She had met many handsome men when she came into the competition space, such as Luo Li's sunny handsomeness, Luo Ye's noble and etherealness, Si Nan's androgynous look, Helian Li's romantic and suaveness, and although each had their own merits, but whether it was their overall temperament or their appearance alone, none could beat Ming Xiu. "Owner, you really are in the eyes of the lover, her beloved is a beauty." Bing Ji rolled his eyes. Although Ming Xiu was indeed outstanding in temperament and incomparable in appearance, but he firmly refused to admit that he, himself, was worse than him. Lu Muyan glanced at Bing Ji. "If you don't speak, no one will treat you as mute." Bing Ji pursed his mouth and mumbled, "What's so good about that red-clothed handsome man?" Speaking of Ming Xiu, Lu Muyan's eyes revealed a rare trace of warmth. She wondered how that guy was now. Lu Muyan was a little puzzled. If the person who saved her that day was Ming Xiu, then why wouldn't he truly appear in the competition space? Then she composed herself and took out the flying-type magic tool that she won. This flying-type magic tool gave her a more and more dangerous feeling. That palpitation of fear should originate from here. If she threw the magic tool away and changed her location, then she might be able to temporarily avoid the crisis, but she didn't want to sit still and wait. If something bad really happened, then it would become a bigger hidden danger in the future if she ignored it now. She didn't like to leave things half done, so since she couldn't escape it, then she'd just wait. Owner, you've been looking at this flying type magic tool a lot recently. Is there any problem? Bing Ji came over and asked curiously. There's a soul arresting array in this flying magic tool. If I drip my blood to be recognized as owner, then my soul may be forcibly detained by the other party's spell. Lu Muyen didn't conceal it either. The several spirit pets and her had already laid their hearts bare to each other and could all be trusted. Hidden in the inconspicuous and intricate patterns of the Sumer light boat was the soul arresting array. If it weren't for her advanced research in arrays, then she'd also be unable to find it. Bing Ji was startled. That smith is so vicious. Owner, then why don't you throw this flying magic tool away? Being able to manipulate the flying magic tool and sculpt a complex and difficult array like the soul arresting array, only that grade 5 smith could do it. So what if I throw it away? I have a feeling that he's precisely coming for me. Lu Muyan's eyes were solemn with a rare killing intent. Instead of sitting in fear and waiting for death, it's better to lure him out of his cave and think about how to eliminate this hidden danger. She didn't know if she had a feud with that great Master Wu or not, but since he dared to do something to her, he would have to pay the price of her revenge. She sure wanted to see what he wanted to do. That's true, if such a hidden danger isn't eliminated, then we can't rest peacefully on our pillows. A coldness flashed past Bing Ji's eyes. He had never been a kind demon cultivator. He just usually covered up his murderous desire in his heart. If one wanted to scheme against his little owner, then they'd have to ask him whether he agreed or not. At the same time, a bloodless and unusually pale middle-aged man rushed towards Lu Muyan's location on a flying magic tool similar to the Sumer light boat. That girl actually entered a Class 1 danger zone. But that was fine. In a danger zone, the image reflection array wouldn't be able to monitor anything, which was more convenient for him to act. Yes. The area where Lu Muyen was located was precisely the periphery of a Class 1 danger zone in the competition space. What Great Master Wu thought of was exactly what she was thinking. For some of her means and trump cards, she didn't want others to know. How could one obtain a tiger's cub without entering the tiger's den? She had always had a kind of madness in her bones, and she just liked to challenge difficult things. 2 days later, Lu Muyen sat in the wooden hut, drinking spiritual tea, holding the earth-rank sword skill in her hand, and quietly flipping through it. Suddenly, she looked up at the door, and her lips raised into a cold arc. Since your honor is here, why don't you come in and drink a cup of tea to quench your thirst? Bing Ji had turned into a 7-colored parrot, standing on Lu Muyen's shoulder. Hearing what she said, he couldn't help but look out the door vigilantly. The black mist in the pendant on Lu Muyan's neck suddenly dissipated, revealing the figure of a man in black, his face still unable to be seen clearly. He opened his eyes and probed out with his soul energy with interest. With a free play to watch, why not? He also wanted to use this situation to see whether this woman named Lu Muyen was worthy of further cooperation and transactions with him or not. After she finished speaking, she saw a man with a pale face and enchantingly red lips walk in. You knew I was coming? Great Master Wu stepped into the room lightly and sat down opposite Lu Muyen. Lu Muyen had a faint smile on her face, but there wasn't much warmth in her eyes. She reached out and poured a cup of tea for the person opposite. I've been waiting for you for a long time, aren't you a bit too slow? Great Master Wu's eyes narrowed, and after a while, he laughed aloud. You, girl, really are extraordinary. It seems that you have already seen through the problem on the Sumer light boat. I also didn't expect that Great Master Wu, who is well known across Tianling continent, would actually use such despicable means like engraving a soul arresting array on the flying magic tool that was auctioned. You might not feel ashamed, but I sure feel disgusted for you. Lu Muyen smiled lightly and ridiculed, her words rather mean. What this Great Master Wu did was really disgusting and she felt that she couldn't curse him enough. A bit of anger appeared on Great Master Wu's face and his expression changed a few times. Then he regained his composure, took a sip of the spiritual tea in front of him, and said slowly, good tea. It's a pity you can't drink it for long. He didn't expect Lu Muyan's attainments in arrays to be so high. If it weren't that only her soul could save his beloved wife, he wouldn't want to act against such a genius either. Since we've already spoken this much, why don't you talk about your purpose? Lu Muyen also wondered why Great Master Wu would want her life. She had never seen him before, and he didn't have any hatred for her in his expression. There also seemed to be a hint of helplessness in the killing intent. Because only your divine soul can save my beloved wife. Great Master Wu reached out and refilled a cup of spiritual tea for himself. Lu Muyen and his beloved wife had a blood connection, so it was fine to let her die with understanding. Beloved wife? Why didn't I know that my divine soul had such use? Lu Muyen sneered and lowered her eyes, her long lashes concealing the look within them. Great Master Wu didn't care about the coldness in Lu Muyen's tone, and instead, there was a hint of tolerance in his gaze. Lu Muyen felt the urge to beat him up when she saw his accommodating but determined expression to kill her. It's useless to talk too much. Do you have any last words? Great Master Wu sighed and looked directly at her and said, I can bring you back to the Lu clan. After a pause, he added, if your divine soul can awaken my beloved wife, I will protect the Lu clan for 10 years in exchange for you. He stared at Lu Muyan's face that was similar to Ling Qiu's and he didn't want to use violent means to kill her. He only hoped that she would obediently sacrifice her divine soul. Lu Muyen chuckled, raised her eyes, and continued sarcastically, I can protect the Lu clan myself. There's no need to bother your precious hands, Great Master Wu. As for who lives or dies today, there's no certainty yet, so why are you so anxious to promise? It's a good thing for young people to be confident, but being overly confident is arrogance. Great Master Wu shook his head with a hint of pity in his tone. Lu Muyan's brows furrowed. She stood up with a boom and leapt out of the wooden house. She shouted to Great Master Wu, who was sitting inside, "Whatever means you have, just use it. I hate people who's already a bitch but wants one to build a memorial for them, one the most in my life, and you're definitely one of them." This man wanted her divine soul, yet was so pretentious about it that she was extremely disgusted by it. She knew the difference was relatively large in effect between willingly giving away her divine soul and forcibly taking it. This person wanted her to voluntarily sacrifice her divine soul and made such a hypocritical gesture, but she looked down on him instead. After hearing her words, Great Master Wu's sickly expression, that originally had a look of pity, instantly turned grim, with a hint of scarlet in his eyes. He snorted coldly, "You fail to appreciate kindness." He said no more, and his sword venerable strength radiated out in an instant, pressing down on Lu Muyan wave after wave. The corners of Lu Muyan's lips evoked a touch of coldness. With a thought, 10 golden flying swords landed in front of her and formed an 8 trigrams force. After inserting a few Taoist seals, the golden flying swords emitted a dazzling light, blocking all the waves of pressure. Bing Ji also took the opportunity to turn into his original form. He opened his beak and a series of icicles erupted from his mouth, shooting directly at Great Master Wu. There was slight surprise in Great Master Wu's eyes. Obviously, he didn't expect that Lu Muyan would actually have hidden a spirit pet with the same strength as himself. He snorted coldly and 2 figures that looked exactly like himself emerged from his body. Even their auras seemed to carry the same sword venerable pressure. He moved his fingers and patted the back of the 2 figures. The 2 figures dashed out in an instant, surrounding Bing Ji to attack. Puppet skill. Lu Muyan was a little surprised. This Great Master Wu was not only a grade 5 smith, but also knew the puppet mechanism skill. It sure was beyond her expectations. You actually know the puppet skill? It truly is a pity to kill you. Great Master Wu shook his head lightly and sighed from the bottom of his heart. Lu Muyan actually knew about the puppet skill that was extinct on this continent. If it weren't that he needed her divine soul, he even wanted to accept her as a disciple. What's there to pity? Lu Muyan glanced at him as she kept forming seals with her hands, then she quickly retreated beside the hot spring. Pu-chi. Suddenly, 4 walls of fire emerged from the ground and surrounded Great Master Wu. I've long heard that this time's dark horse, Lu Muyan's array attainments are very accomplished. Seeing it today, it truly is extraordinary. Great Master Wu casually swept her array with his eyes. If this fire array was a grade higher, I really wouldn't be able to do anything. He chuckled lightly and a faint orange light suddenly emerged from his body. The flames in the array hurriedly retreated as if it saw their nemesis. With a snap of his fingers, a cluster of orange flames burst out, instantly engulfing all the surrounding walls of fire. The largest fortuitous opportunity you encountered in the competition space back then was this spirit flame, right? Lu Muyan's expression changed. This Great Master Wu was a little tricky. No wonder the feelings of heart palpitations of fear kept rising in her heart. It seemed that there would be more dangers than fortune today, but even so, she didn't reveal the slightest timidity. Great Master Wu raised an eyebrow, as expected of Ling Qiu's bloodline, indeed exceptionally intelligent. Hearing the words Ling Qiu, Lu Muyan raised her head to ask with furrowed brows, "You want to give my divine soul to that person named Ling Qiu to devour and refine?" "That's right, if it weren't that except for you, I haven't found a suitable divine soul for 100 years, I wouldn't touch you today either." His tone was rather helpless. He wondered if Ling Qiu would blame him when she woke up and realized that she had devoured someone who was of the same bloodline as her. Immediately, a firm look appeared in his eyes again. Ling Qiu was his life. He couldn't be without her. And it didn't matter if he was to be blamed or slandered, as long as he could save her. I really didn't expect that the person who wanted to refine my divine soul was actually my maternal grandfather's blood-related elder sister. Lu Muyan's expression revealed even deeper mockery. "Don't give such a fake attitude, do I have to thank you for your few words of pity?" It seemed that this Great Master Wu didn't just start eyeing her now. People who were of the same bloodline and similar divine souls could indeed be devoured to achieve a certain effect. It was just that this skill had long been banned by the 6 major sects and several top forces on Tianling continent, and those who violated the order would be wanted and killed. Doesn't matter what you think. As long as I can save Ling Qiu, what does it matter even if I bear the curse of the entire continent? Great Master Wu said indifferently. Lu Muyan raised an eyebrow. "You indeed don't care about slander, but using the divine soul hex banned on this continent without authorization, if it were found out by the 6 major sects and the organizers, who knows if you'll still have the life to continue to live with Ling Qiu forever. So I'm also glad that the place you chose to wait for me was in a danger zone, which is also a blind spot of their surveillance." Great Master Wu's pale face revealed a rare hint of red. Seeing that his complexion began to grow normal, Lu Muyan was focused, and the hands she hid beneath her sleeve kept pinching seals. "Do you really think that there's impermeable walls in this world too?" Lu Muyan's hand were pinching the seals much faster. Great Master Wu's complexion gradually turned rosy, and the pressure on his body also gradually deepened. "Little girl, how long do you want to delay this? Should I do it myself or will you obediently go back with me and sacrifice your divine soul? I think that your identity is not just as simple as a grade 5 smith and an elder of the smithing pavilion, right?" Lu Muyan narrowed her eyes when a faint cyan smoke rose from the center of his forehead. Great Master Wu looked at her meaningfully and said with a sullen face, "Those who are too intelligent won't live long." Immediately, he stretched out his hand and grabbed at Lu Mu Yen through the air. An invisible mighty force instantly enveloped her. Bing Ji shredded a black figure and wanted to rush in her direction to save her, yet who knew that with a simple toss from that great Master Wu, a wall of fire built from spirit flames erupted and isolated him. The remaining puppet figure also instantly became embroiled in a fight with him. Then the power turned into a pair of invisible hands and tightly choked Lu Mu Yan's neck, slowly trying to suck out her divine soul. The feeling of being strangled at the neck really wasn't pleasant. Then she felt a very light, but very domineering force enter down her neck, heading towards her divine soul guarded in her sea of consciousness. Her hands that were constantly pinching stopped, and her eyes gradually closed, as if she was powerless and had to give up. Great Master Wu naturally missed the fleeting ridicule in her eyes. Mo Yen, let's start. Lu Mu Yen had her eyes closed, and the Taoist seals she was pinching formed a vortex in her dantian one after another. Mo Yen, who was originally in a deep sleep in the spirit beast ring, opened his eyes instantly. His eyes were darker and brighter than ever before, and they were filled with coldness right now. All right. Lu Mu Yen breathed a sigh of relief when she heard his answer. The reason why she dared to take the risk to wait for this venerable sword master, Great Master Wu, to arrive was because she felt that Mo Yen was about to awaken. She still attached great importance to her little life. She wouldn't really be arrogant and foolish to challenge a sword master who was 2 stages above herself and who had trump cards. With a thought, a cluster of purple gold flames instantly followed her meridians upwards and gently enveloped the domineering power. In only an instant, it was burnt completely. Great Master Wu, who originally had a carefree attitude, now revealed a bit of solemnity in his expression and let out a sound of confusion. You actually have the purple gold spirit flame in you. Great Master Wu exclaimed, his eyes wide, and filled with fiery greed. Then he laughed a few times. I didn't expect that I would actually come across the spirit flame I've been searching many years for under such circumstances today. If I devour and refine the purple gold spirit flame within you, then the great thing I want to achieve has increased in chances. Lu Mu Yen ignored him and concentrated on peeling off the Taoist seal in her dantian. Great Master Wu waved his hand and a dazzling orange light instantly enveloped Lu Mu Yen, wanting to burn her whole body to death and devour the spirit flame inside. Lu Mu Yen slowly opened her eyes, and her black pupils were much darker, as if the night had sucked all the stars in. A cluster of purple gold flames covered her entire body. It formed a stalemate with the orange flames. White silk sash, often seen used as weapons by females. But sometimes men too. Seeing this, Great Master Wu sneered and shot a strip of white silk sash with the pressure of a high-quality saint tool, attacking Lu Mu Yen. That white silk sash condensed his entire elemental energy, with magnificent momentum, breaking through the air. Lu Mu Yen quickly blocked with an 8 trigrams formed by golden swords, but she was still hit by the white sash, and she retreated dozens of meters. Pooh! Immediately, her chest felt a sweet sensation and a mouthful of blood spurted out. She raised her head and looked at Great Master Wu grimly. This man really wasn't a good thing, like a poisonous snake ready to bite her at any time. Great Master Wu's expression gradually became ugly. He didn't expect that after using so many methods, he still couldn't kill Lu Mu Yen. He really underestimated her before. Looking at the time of day, he realized that couldn't delay any longer. Go die. 3 green, silver needles suddenly appeared in his hand, and as soon as they were released, the 3 silver needles flew towards Lu Mu Yen. This was one of his trump cards, the dark green poison needles. Not only was it made from deep-sea silver essence, but the needle was also dyed with a kind of extreme poison that could harm and also disperse elemental energy. At the same time, it was also his classic work as a smith, which had already gone beyond the scope of a low-quality saint tool. Even a peak phase sword venerable strength sword master would be unable to withstand it. Lu Mu Yen felt a sense of crisis since the dark green silver needles flew towards her. She also recognized the refining material of the needles. However, there was no fear on her face. The blackness of her pupils gradually deepened, and if one looked closely, there even seemed to be clusters of black flames inside. Seeing that the dark green poison needles passed through Lu Mu Yan's purple gold spirit flame and was about to penetrate the middle of her brows, Great Master Wu's ruddy face turned pale again. He still couldn't use too much true elemental energy right now. Then a sudden change occurred, and his originally smiling face froze instantly. Suddenly, clusters of cyan flames carrying a dim light emerged from Lu Mu Yan's body. The purple gold spirit flame and his orange spirit flame instantly dimmed a lot. A black paw print appeared out of thin air and grabbed the dark green poison needles. The originally strong and powerful poisonous needles was blocked by the claws and couldn't penetrate Lu Mu Yan's brows no matter what. Roar! Then, a beast roar with the pressure of a king sounded in the air. Great Master Wu's face instantly paled. He opened his eyes and stretched out his hands, with slight trembling, screaming, Netherworld flame, how is this possible? While he was stunned, a white light burst out from Lu Mu Yan's wrist and charged straight towards him. At this time, Lu Mu Yan's stunning face revealed slight enchantment. Her lips curled up in an arc. She tapped her toes and flew up. A golden dagger appeared in her hand, and with a flash, she also leapt towards Great Master Wu. Great Master Wu instantly woke up. He quickly tossed out all the defensive-type magic tools on him, then actually turned around and flew away in the opposite direction. Lu Mu Yen narrowed her eyes, opened her little mouth, and spat out a cluster of cyan flames mixed with purple, which turned into a gorgeous lotus that quickly floated towards Great Master Wu. Great Master Wu was startled and accelerated his escape, yet who knew he would be blocked by a white figure. Taking a closer look, it was a huge, snow-white demonic beast. The cluster of bright red marks on his forehead that appeared like flames were lifelike. Spirit Devourer, how is this possible? Great Master Wu was forced to stop, filled with disbelief in his expressions, and mumbled, How can there be a Spirit Devourer on this interface? How can there be a Spirit Devourer on this interface? You can go to hell and ask King Yama. Lu Muyan's cold voice sounded behind him. As soon as he turned his head, he saw the enchanting fire lotus that had restrained its aura slowly floating over, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. He wanted to run away from the left side. Where are you running to? Bing Ji was not only a tier 8 demonic beast, but was also a divine beast, so his strength was naturally not average. He had already destroyed the puppets and blocked Great Master Wu's path. Seeing this, Great Master Wu revealed a ruthlessness and decisiveness in his eyes. He turned around and dashed one in the only direction that wasn't surrounded. Yet who knew that the path was suddenly blocked by a huge golden demonic plant that emerged from the ground. He could only stabilize his body and stand in the center, his eyes filled with shock. He had no idea that a junior at the Sword Monarch level would have so many means. If it were just spirit pets, he wasn't afraid at all. He could still kill Lu Muyan even if he injured himself a little. But after all his calculations, he never thought that she would have a Spirit Devourer, and a Spirit Devourer with the Netherworld Flame from a royal clan at that. And there was one thing in this world that was his nemesis, or rather, the nemesis of people like him, and that was the Netherworld Flame. Go on, run. Why aren't you running anymore? Lu Muyan raised an eyebrow sinisterly and smiled with her arms folded. Great Master Wu knew that he had lost his greatest advantage today, and he smiled bitterly. He didn't expect to be that turtle caught in a jar too by a junior after living for so many years. What do you want to do? He asked with a cold face, his momentum unabated. I like gang fights the most now, so of course we want to beat you up together. Lu Muyan restrained her smiles, and a sharp, incisive look revealed in her eyes. She wanted to madly beat up this bitch earlier. So before killing him, she wanted to beat him up first to extinguish the anger in her heart, then talk about the rest later. When Great Master Wu heard Lu Muyan's words, he couldn't resist revealing a look of ridicule. You look too highly on yourself. What qualifications did a sword master, at only Sword Monarch Cultivation base, have to speak so wildly in front of him? Lu Muyan hooked her lips and smiled, then let's just wait and see. Then, her hands were covered with a faint purple gold color. It wasn't just fire elemental energy now, but the power of pure purple gold spirit flame to increase her bonus power. She gave Mo Yen a look, then she quickly used flash steps and moved in front of Great Master Wu, bombarding him punch after punch. Great Master Wu was, after all, a sword venerable powerhouse, so he naturally very easily dodged her attacks, but he didn't expect that the Spirit Devourer behind him would suddenly spew an ethereal cyan flame towards him. Dodging too late, his face was instantly punched by Lu Muyan. His pale and bloodless face immediately became red and swollen, and he was furious. Just as he was about to retaliate, the netherworld flame struck again from behind. His expression changed and he barely dodged. Then, a white snake jumped out from Lu Muyan's wrist, opened her mouth, and sprayed mist towards the place where Great Master Wu was. The human-eating blood thorn vine king swung his main vine, that contained sharp thorns, upwards and continuously whipped against Great Master Wu. Under the powerful attack of the netherworld flame, he was accidentally scratched by the barb on the main vine. Following, the large Icelwan spread his wings and flew high above his head, constantly spitting out icicles with great power and speed. He could only use all his elemental energy to avoid the attacks from all sides. Each time he dodged one side, he would always be forced to meet the other side by the netherworld flame. Lu Muyan's fist covered with purple gold spirit flame obviously wasn't a vegetarian either. Each time, she would punch at Great Master Wu's weakest joints, then another punch against his face again, and a streak of fresh blood seeped out from the corner of his lips. At this moment, even the carefree Great Master Wu was in an extremely sorry state, and his movements grew slower and slower. He was startled. He was invulnerable to hundreds of poisons, and yet he was actually poisoned by both that white snake's venomous mist and the venom on the vine. His whole body gradually became stiff, and even if he used his elemental energy, he couldn't break free from the shackles of those toxins. His slow movements and delayed responses also allowed Lu Muyan and her few spirit pets to seize the opportunity to beat him up wildly. If there were other people present right now, their eyes would definitely pop out in shock. This was basically a one-sided beating and abuse, as violent as it could get. When the poison in Great Master Wu's body dissipated, he fell to the ground entirely, hugging his head in a sorry state, with exceptionally serious internal and external injuries. Lu Muyan, don't forget that I'm your grandaunt's husband. How will you explain to the Ling family how you've treated your senior after you return? Currently, Great Master Wu was surrounded by a dark cyan flame. He didn't dare to move too much, otherwise he would only be waiting for the consequence of his divine figure to be annihilated. Humph, for a grandaunt that wants to devour and refine my divine soul, it's already a good thing that I'm not killing her. Lu Muyan snorted coldly, my grandaunt already disappeared 200 years ago, and you, the so-called husband, has never even appeared in the Ling clan, yet you still have the face to want to seek connections as relatives with me. Just watch how I beat you to death. After she finished speaking, she waved her fist, and it was another round of maniacal beating of Great Master Wu. Don't you want to know the whereabouts of your grandaunt? Great Master Wu wanted to fight back but was restrained by the netherworld flames and was extremely helpless. Why do I want to know her whereabouts? A woman who became a dual cultivation partner with a ghost cultivator, and who stole the Ling clan's most valuable treasure and left the clan is also worthy of my attention? Lu Muyan mocked. She had never even met that so-called grand aunt, so how could she have any deep feelings for her? The disappearance of her eldest uncle, who was also Ling Fei Yang's father, also seemed to have something to do with that woman. In addition, she heard from mother that the most valuable treasure of the Ling clan also disappeared after that grand aunt severed connections with the clan, leading to the Ling clan's gradual decline. So Ling Qiu didn't give her a good impression. You know him, a ghost cultivator? Great Master Wu, who originally had his head lowered, thinking about something, suddenly raised his head and stared at Lu Muyen. Lu Muyen glanced at him, but the movements of her fists didn't stop, although the aura on you is well hidden, but the cyan smoke that emerged from between your brows when you used elemental energy earlier revealed your identity. A ghost cultivator hiding among the human sword masters and even joined the smithing pavilion, becoming a famous grade 5 smith on this continent. Your purpose mustn't be simple. Lu Muyen snorted coldly. Ghost cultivators needed countless fresh souls to be sacrificed to their skills, and many of their methods were vicious and cruel. They were the most wanted people by the 6 major sects and several top forces on Tianling continent. Because of Great Master Wu's identity as a smith, who knew what method he used to hide his identity as a ghost cultivator, plus him joining the smithing pavilion definitely involved unspeakable secrets. You sure are very meticulous for such a young age. Great Master Wu's eyes were grim and cold. As if he had made up his mind, he suddenly reached out and tapped somewhere on his body, spurting out a mouthful of blood essence. A bubble of blood mist wrapped around him, and an unpleasant scent of blood spread in an instant. A red light suddenly emerged from the red mist and fled towards the distant horizon. Mo Yan's eyes were filled with mockery. With a thought, the cluster of flames on his forehead detached automatically, and with a shoo, it caught up with the red light and trapped it. Not long after, there were several screams from the sky, and Great Master Wu was devoured by the netherworld flames before he could say any more. Mo Yan, you want to refine his soul? Lu Muyen felt the soul energy of Great Master Wu growing weaker and weaker. Why, do you want me to show mercy? Mo Yan raised his eyes and looked at her deeply. She shouldn't be such a soft-hearted person, right? Lu Muyen shook her head. You can go ahead and refine it, but can you obtain any useful information from his divine soul? I can. Mo Yan nodded. What the spirit devourer was best at was devouring and refining divine souls, and also stripping the other party of their memories. Then he'll rely on you. I want to know the purpose of him infiltrating the smithing pavilion and the whereabouts of that Ling Qiu. Lu Muyen poked Mo Yan's body and said. Mo Yan quickly avoided her devilish hands, his gaze slightly unnatural. Mo Yan, I just realized that you've already advanced to tier 7. Lu Muyen blinked and said. Mo Yan glanced at her, so what? He deliberately ignored the playfulness and curiosity in Lu Muyen's eyes. He knew precisely what she was thinking. Doesn't advancing to a tier 7 demonic beast mean that you can transform into a human? Come on, give me a transformation. She was pretty curious about what Mo Yan's human transformation would look like. Mo Yan coughed lightly. Well, talk about it another time. Mo Yan, you're shy. Lu Muyen chuckled, then said teasingly. Mo Yan rolled his eyes at her. With a kick of his hind legs, he jumped into the air and opened his mouth to swallow the netherworld flame together with Great Master Wu's divine soul into his stomach. I'm going to refine and strip him of his memories. You can check if there's anything good in his interspatial ring. Mo Yan waved his paw, and a dark interspatial ring fell into Lu Muyen's hand. Lu Muyen took the ring, then made a sound of curiosity, and with great interest, probed her mental energy into the interspatial ring. The imprint on the interspatial ring was already erased by Mo Yan. After Lu Muyen probed her mental energy into the interspatial ring, she found that this ring refined by Great Master Wu was indeed extraordinary. Not only was the space inside more than 10 times larger than her current ring, but it was also divided into different sections. Among them, there was a space dedicated to placing spiritual herbs, and the surrounding area was actually made of 10,000-year ice, which could preserve the freshness of the spiritual herbs to the greatest extent. A separate large space was used for placing smithing materials, and there were countless precious smithing materials and many half-finished products and finished products. Lu Muyen swept the no less than 30 pieces of spirit treasures and saint tools, and her lips rose in an arc. After returning, she could improve the arming of magic tools of the Lu clan again. She roughly checked the contents of the ring and found that Great Master Wu was simply too rich. There were millions of low-quality spiritual stones, and there were even 20,000 middle-quality spiritual stones. When she was about to exit the space, she suddenly found an inconspicuous dark red token mixed in a pile of various miscellaneous things. With a thought, the red token fell into the palm of her hand. At this moment, Mo Yan just finished devouring and refining Great Master Wu's divine soul and opened his eyes. When he saw the thing in Lu Muyen's hand, his eyes deepened. This pure red token is the same as the pure gold token you obtained before. I also discovered that. Great Master Wu deliberately put it in a pile of random things to hide it and camouflaged it. I almost didn't recognize it. Lu Muyen chuckled, pinched a few Taoist seals, then rubbed the dark and inconspicuous red token. A layer of things on the token shattered and disappeared. When the token was exposed again, the color was bright red, and a strong fire attribute element radiated out. It seems that there should be more than these 2 tokens. Lu Muyen said while playing with the token. Mo Yan nodded. There's an aura that doesn't belong to this interface. It should be an important, indispensable object to open a certain place. It appears, I guess, that there may be 5 different attributes of tokens like this. Didn't you find any information about the tokens in Great Master Wu's memory? Lu Muyen raised her eyes and asked. There is a mysterious seal in his body that hides the most secret of information. As long as his life is lost, the information will also disappear, so there's no information about it, including about why he snuck into the smithing pavilion and such. Mo Yen said lightly. Such a seal shouldn't have been applied by him, right? Lu Mu Yen asked with furrowed brows. Mo Yen's dark eyes were slightly grim. That seal is surrounded by a devilish aura. He may be a spy from another interface. When your cultivation base reaches sword venerable strength, you will naturally know many more things. Lu Mu Yen glanced at Mo Yen inexplicably. You think that there are some things that I shouldn't know? It's not good for you to know too much right now. You should concentrate on your cultivation and wait until you reach the sword venerable cultivation base, then I'll personally tell you some secrets. Mo Yen still didn't loosen his lips. Lu Mu Yen pondered for a bit, then no longer bothered about this issue. She would naturally know when she should know. Do you know about Ling Qiu? Mo Yen nodded and explained what happened from Great Master Wu's memory. 200 years ago, he and Ling Qiu came to this competition space to participate in the Tianling Continent Tournament for hegemony. His purpose at the time was to find a spirit flame, and participating in the competition was actually secondary. After finding and subduing the spirit flame, his internal organs were also burnt. When he was at his weakest, he encountered a sword master from a superpower kingdom who was also looking for the spirit flame and was almost killed. At his most hopeless moment, he was saved by Ling Qiu. The two of them participated in the subsequent competition together, and in the end, they gradually developed feelings and fell in love with each other. After Ling Qiu found out about his ghost cultivator identity, not only did she not leave him, but instead, she stole the Ling clan's most valuable treasure for him to cover up the aura on his body from being discovered by high-level powerhouses. It was also because of this valuable treasure that he could enter the smithing pavilion and become an elder. Ling Qiu also severed connections with the Ling clan because of this. 100 years ago, the two of them met a formidable enemy. Ling Qiu's divine soul was injured and scattered to save him. He used a secret skill to find the scattered original souls, but unfortunately, they were too weak, and needed to devour and refine a sword master who had the same bloodline as Ling Qiu, and also a similar divine soul, to be able to awaken. He had been searching for 100 years, and this time, he brought Ling Qiu to the competition space to find a fortuitous encounter, but who knew that he discovered your existence in the first city? After watching the battle between you and the owner of that pure gold token, he set his sights on you. He not only wanted to take your divine soul, but also wanted to take that pure gold token. It was just a pity that man proposes, heaven disposes. He didn't expect that he would lose his life because of it. But it could be considered that he was deeply in love with your grand aunt, and he was still thinking about her even at his deathbed. Lu Mu Yen furrowed her brows tightly and pondered for a bit after listening to what Mo Yen said in one breath. Has Ling Qiu been involved in the matter of Great Master Wu's refining souls on the path of the ghost? Great Master Wu had been hiding his ghost cultivator's elemental energy. When he used the escape skill earlier, she felt that strong bloody scent. There was also a lot of soul energy mixed with it, which must have been the murdered souls of many sword masters. Mo Yen glanced at her, paused, then said, yes. And there are quite a few cultivators who died in Ling Qiu's hands. If not 1,000, at least a few hundred. Lu Mu Yan's expression sank. By the way, did you find out about my eldest uncle from his memory? Your eldest uncle accidentally found out that he was a ghost cultivator. He originally planned to kill, but was stopped by Ling Qiu. They threw your eldest uncle into the Black Mist Canyon, one of the 10 treacherous zones on this continent, to fend for himself. Lu Mu Yen sneered. What's the difference between that and killing him? That woman really isn't a good thing. Not only did she steal the clan's most valuable treasure and betray the clan, causing the Ling clan to fall into ruin, but she also attacked her relatives. She truly is hateful. Where is she? After a while, Lu Mu Yen asked Mo Yen with a grim expression. In a basement in the central city. Mo Yen rarely saw her so grim and sighed. Why be angry with such a person? You want to kill her completely? Eldest uncle used to be very kind to me. I didn't expect him to have been killed by that woman. Can I not be angry? Lu Mu Yen raised an eyebrow. It's boring to just kill her. I'll hand her to Ling Fei Yang to bring her back to the Ling clan and let them handle her. That's fine. But the Ling clan's valuable treasure has already been melted and refined by him. Now it's been turned to ashes by my netherworld flame with his body. Mo Yen said. His netherworld flame killed all kinds of evil spirits and ghosts. The ghost cultivator insidious skill in Great Master Wu had already infected the treasure with a devilish energy. Even if it were still intact, it couldn't be used anymore, so he burnt it together. It doesn't matter if it's turned into ashes. Lu Mu Yen didn't care about that so-called valuable treasure. Here, I'll give you something good. After Mo Yen finished speaking, he spit out a cluster of orange flames from his mouth. After you refine this spirit flame, the purple gold spirit flame should be able to mutate and upgrade. Lu Mu Yan's eyes lit up. She had been thinking about this cluster of spirit flames earlier, but she didn't accept it immediately. Does your netherworld flame need spirit flames to evolve? If you need it, you can refine it first. Mo Yan's indifferent eyes were stained with a small smile. This spirit flame isn't very useful to the netherworld flame. Hurry up and go refine it. Lu Mu Yen being able to restrain the longing in her heart and give up the spirit flame to Mo Yen made his long frozen heart melt a little more. You really don't need it? You're not lying to me, are you? Lu Mu Yen looked at Mo Yen seriously. If Mo Yan's netherworld flame needed it, she would definitely never snatch it from him. Mo Yen smiled without a good attitude and said, I really don't need it. This level of spirit flame is completely useless to my natal flame. Lu Muyen rolled her eyes at him. So it seemed that he disliked that this spirit flame's level was low. Sure, it doesn't enter your eyes, but I'm greedy for it, so I won't be polite. This spirit flame does have the effect of mutating and upgrading her purple gold spirit flame. After she finished speaking, with a wave of her sleeves, she collected the spirit flame and ran into the wooden hut to start refining. Mo Yen watched her leave with a rare warmth in his eyes. 10 days later, a stream of spiritual force of heaven and earth flowed continuously into the wooden hut. Although it didn't form spiritual clouds, but there was a rather considerable amount. I wonder if owner will successfully advance to Sword Sovereign this time or not. Bing Ji transformed into his human form and rubbed his chin with a look of anticipation in his eyes. Mo Yen laid lazily on a piece of white animal skin to bask in the sun. She won't. Advancing too fast will cause the foundation to be unstable. She won't do such a thing. That's true. Miao Miao's advancement is also too fast. Will her foundation also be unstable? Bing Ji asked with slight worry. Mo Yen raised his eyes and glanced at him with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. It won't. Demonic beasts are different to humans. What's more, Miao Miao has the golden dragon bloodline, so there's no such thing as unstable foundation beneath tier 9. This time, not only was Lu Muyen cultivating in seclusion, but Miao Miao and Xue Xue also felt the bottleneck of advancement break at practically the same time, so the two demonic beasts also found a place to advance. Inside the wooden hut, Lu Muyen refining the cluster of orange spirit flames wasn't as easy as she imagined. Although the orange blaze spirit flame wasn't as high level as the purple gold spirit flame, but it also understood danger, and wouldn't allow itself to be swallowed by the purple gold spirit flame willingly. While Lu Muyen suppressed the orange blaze's resistance and let the purple gold spirit flame devour it smoothly, she also had to endure the pain of burning meridians of her whole body from the spirit flame. After another 10 days, she changed her sweaty clothes and with a refreshing flip of her palm, a cluster of two-colored spirit flames emerged. Then, she didn't stop, but used the energy of refining the spirit flame to advance her cultivation base. Spiritual force gathered around and all surged into the wooden hut. Lu Muyen transformed the spiritual force into spiritual energy and used the green mist in her dantian to purify it again and again. When the spiritual energy was pure to its limit, she also successfully advanced from middle phase Sword Monarch to advanced phase Sword Monarch. This sort of speed was actually already amazing, and as long as she wanted to, with a little spiritual force gathering array, she could directly advance to peak phase Sword Monarch. But she didn't do so. Mo Yen was rather correct. It wasn't always better to advance one's cultivation base as fast as possible. She liked to lay a solid foundation, and the purer her spiritual energy was, the better it would be for her to condense her golden core in the near future. After the advancement was completed, she didn't leave the wooden hut, but instead, took out that set of earth-rank sword skill to research, and some of its ingenious uses benefited her a lot. Although she was an almighty from the spiritual realm, but she didn't reach for what was beyond her grasp. There were also many things in this world that she should learn and accept with an open mind. A month later, Miao Miao advanced into Tier 7 and Xue Xue also broke through to middle phase Tier 7. Miao Miao could now transform into a human form, which made Xue Xue jealous for a long time. Demonic plants must reach Tier 8 to be able to transform into a human form. All of Lu Muyen's spirit pets, aside from Xue Xue, could now transform, only that Mo Yen had never transformed before. Owner, let's go into the mountains to play. Because Miao Miao advanced too quickly, she now looked like a little girl of about 3 or 4 years old after her transformation. Lu Muyen squeezed her fleshy pink face and said with a smile, this is a Class 1 danger zone. Even if Tier 8 demonic beasts entered, they may not survive. You better stop dreaming. Miao Miao and Bing Ji were a bit similar in one aspect. They liked to play very much and simply couldn't sit still. Then that's fine. Miao Miao sighed. And in another month, we'll be leaving. You and Xue Xue should hurry up and consolidate your cultivation base. Lu Muyen stroked her nose and said. All right. With 3 days left before the Great War, Lu Muyen walked out of the wooden hut and flew out of this area. Because demonic beasts were also preparing for the battle, so although they were in a Class 1 danger zone, but they hadn't encountered many powerful demonic beasts. When Lu Muyen returned to the border city, Lu Mubai and the others were all a little anxious, and only when they saw her return safely were they relieved. After chatting with the others and catching up, Lu Muyen called Lu Mubai and Ling Fei Yang to talk privately in one of the inn's rooms. Yenner, did something happen? Lu Mubai asked worriedly, seeing her solemn expression. Ling Fei Yang looked up at her intently. He just felt that what she was going to say today had something to do with him. After I left individually before, I met that great Master Wu who refined the Sumer light boat. It turned out that he was. Lu Muyen briefly talked about the encounter with Great Master Wu and Ling Qiu, but she didn't reveal Mo Yen. Instead, she told them that the news was what she interrogated from Great Master Wu himself. It wasn't that she couldn't trust Lu Mubai and Ling Fei Yang, but the more they knew, the less safe they were. Bang! Ling Fei Yang's expression was exceptionally grim, and the teacup in his hand was crushed by him. Lu Muyen sighed and comforted, elder cousin brother, maybe eldest uncle didn't die in the Black Mist Canyon. After all, the soul tablet left in the Ling clan hasn't completely broken. All direct line and elite pupils of each clan basically had a soul tablet representing their life. If their soul tablet was broken completely, then it meant that the person was already dead. But father's soul tablet is filled with cracks. Even if he's not dead now, he must be in extreme danger. Ling Fei Yang revealed slight pain. I didn't expect that the person who harmed father would be his direct aunt. That woman must have been possessed to be so ungrateful simply for a man. Lu Mu Bei's expression was also very ugly. Ling Qiu's talent was even better than their maternal grandfather, and so she was raised by the clan with importance. But who knew that ultimately, they fed a white-eyed wolf won? She's in this competition space? Ling Fei Yang restrained his emotions, but the coldness in his eyes didn't dissipate. Lu Mu Yen nodded, After the finals, I'll take you both to her. If she can be saved without devouring and refining a divine soul, then I'll try my best to wake her up. Speaking of refining divine souls, Lu Mu Bai and Ling Fei Yang's expression condensed some killing intent. Lu Mu Yen was almost killed by her too. Why does Mu Yen want to save her? Is she worthy? Ling Fei Yang furrowed her brows, a look of disgust in his eyes. Lu Mu Yen curled her lips, narrowed her eyes, and said, don't you think it's too cheap for her to die just like this? Maybe she might know some news about uncle. As long as eldest uncle's soul tablet hasn't completely broken, there's still hope, no? Plus, that woman might also know some background information of that great Master Wu. Ling Fei Yang also had a glimmer of hope in his heart when he heard her say this, yes. Maybe she has news of father. It's really too easy on her to just let her die like this. After discussing a little more, they cultivated in the city and waited for the great decisive war. Dong dong dong. 3 days later, a melodious bell rang. Lu Mu Yen stood up and quickly leapt towards the direction of the city wall, and countless figures in the entire city also ran in that direction. The time had come for the great decisive war with the demonic beasts in the finals. One an ingrate.